The developers challenged me to get an achievement so difficult that only 0.5% of players have accomplished it. Win an economic victory. You see, in Trade Conquest, you start off as a small-time investor buying into one good that you can either sell or turn into a more profitable good. Through this process, you acquire money that you can then turn into influence and eventually become the head of state of your country. From there, world conquest is the only logical conclusion. But what if we never became the head of state and instead pulled the strings from behind the shadows? If we could manipulate our home country to hold 55% of the global GDP, we would win an economic victory. Now, when the developers sponsored me to do this, they didn't realize one crucial fact. Mama raised a tryhard. You see, in addition to the achievement, there was also a leaderboard. And I wasn't just going to be on it, I was going to carve my name into it so deep future archaeologists would think it was a warning sign. For the next month, I hit the books, I researched, I tested, I experimented like a sleep-deprived mad scientist until I finally crafted a strategy whose brilliance was only matched by its sheer, morally questionable depravity. The kind of strategy where people wouldn't ask, how did you do it? But rather, why are you like this? You see, for this strategy to work, we'd have to be a little evil. Not like full twirl the mustache and cackle evil, but possibly take a few lives and ruin some Thanksgivings. And like all great evil plans in histories, ours begins with corn. All we need is a place that makes this in insane quantities. Enter America, the Beyonce of corn production. They grow so much corn it's suspicious. Setting up shop there not only gives us an endless golden kernel supply, but also shields us from any pesky wars that might slow us down. After all, no one dares bomb the world's popcorn supplier. We started out as the lobbyist. It would give us a bonus to influence, which we would use later, and a small loan from daddy. About cornfields in America's all-star states, we're talking Mississippi, Missouri, Kentucky, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. Only the best will do. Now, each of these states are close to a major body of water, which gives them a 20% bonus to corn production, and thus the corn mafia was born. All that was left was to sit back and let the money roll in. From there, we would add ethanol. By using our corn to produce ethanol, we would increase our market return from 0.1 to 0.2. Massive. But this is only tier 2 in a 5-tier system, each tier giving us exponentially higher returns. We can also upgrade each tier 4 times to further increase our wealth. We had some money left over, so we went into Tennessee and purchased some sugar before completely draining all of our starting income. Now, every month we'll incur operating costs based on the amount and level of our investments. Right now it's only 0.6. That's still enough to drive us into the red. Now go over 1,000 and it's game over. Now, whenever you sell a good on the market, it drives down the demand, thus the price goes down. So I invested in storage so I could sell in larger quantities while minimizing impact on price. I also upgraded all my assets to level 4 and saved up 20 life, which would allow me to afford my first tier 3 structure. Now with $21, I think we can afford to build our first structure. Let's go to a place with good unrest that we don't have to worry about this all coming down on us, and let's build some whiskey. Mississippi whiskey, God's finest. The return on whiskey is 7.48. To give you perspective on that, corn is 0.2, ethanol is 0.3. But just as our fledgling empire was getting off to a good start, we faced any capitalist nemesis. Inflation. Inflation would not only make our operating and building costs go up, but would also increase the unrest in each state. If workers are too unhappy, they stop working and their factory shuts down.
Is this some sort of peasant joke that I'm too rich to understand?
This was due to factors outside of our control, as we have no influence over what the government does to anger or appease its citizens. No, Tennessee! Oh, instead of being in the field, the youths are out in the street rebelling. Everyone's so mad right now. Oh, so we lose those two. Very unfortunate. I'm glad we didn't build in Tennessee or whiskey production in Tennessee, but that is very frustrating. We're gonna have to somehow get that down. And if we wanted to build a security force, what would that even cost us? $1. Bring it down. Does that bring the youths back? No. Oh no, Mississippi's in the same boat. Oh, we really need Mississippi. Let's get some. Oh, we don't have any money. Okay, hold on. We need to fix this. For now, we would do what we could, building security forces in each state, bringing down the unrest, and force liquidating all but our most valuable assets, whiskey, so we could slow down the effects of inflation. With these returns, we Wolf of Wall Street our way to success, and there's only one thing to do when you come to that much wealth. turn it into cattle. We bought cattle operations in New York, New Hampshire, Maine, and Washington. I did this not only because I look good in a cowboy hat, but because cattle is used to produce amino acid. An amino acid is used to produce our next target item, ribonucleic
acid.
Ribonucleic acid. Anyways, this acid is worth a lot. The only thing standing on our way is research. We would need to reach pharmaceuticals, which was way down here. To get there, we would have to build research labs. These research labs would produce social research points, and each level would get us a different bonus that would increase production. So now that it was self-serving, I became very interested in the education of the American workforce, building research and sociology labs everywhere I could, eventually reaching a total of 7 research labs and 3 sociology labs. Finally, it was in sight: pharmaceutical research. No longer would we be stuck with the small potatoes of cattle and corn. Oh no, we're in the big leagues now. We weren't playing Farmville anymore, we were playing Breaking Bad Agricultural Edition. Ribonucleic acid has a market return of $5.90. Whiskey, a sad 15. That's like trading in your rusty bicycle for the gravedigger. So we went all in. For the next few years, we converted every amino acid we could get our greedy little hands on into ribonucleic acid. It was like turning base metals into gold, except way nerdier and 100% more lab coats. Our operating costs had also increased dramatically, and the risk of storing as much ribonucleic acid without getting a game over from our operating costs would get higher and higher, as there were a few occasions where we almost lost it all. Before long though, we really had started to make some money enough for stage 2 of our world domination plan, to turn America into the world's leading producer of pharmaceuticals. Our focus? Only the good stuff. Antimicrobial medication, immunosuppressants, and cardiovascular drugs, because nothing says we control the world like holding everyone's hearts and immune systems hostage. Now, we wouldn't be able to source all the goods we would need for our master plan in America alone. Salt would be a stepping stone for beta blockers, which is a key ingredient in the cardiovascular medication. For salt, we turned to our neighbors to the south, Mexico. Now, Mexico was in the midst of a civil war. I didn't really care much about that, but I did need the salt. But before we could dive into this further, our first international crisis struck. Final act of retaliation and harrowing decision: North Korea has armed their Dead Hand Protocol. The grim shadow of mutually assured destruction now threatens to consume the globe, leaving no room for retreat. Excuse me? Where's North Korea? Who's invading them? South Korea's invading them! This seemed bad, and the ramifications for South Korea would last decades, which made me feel bad. Until the next payday came in and I realized how I could profit off of this with oil. Looking for oil. With our liquid gold market secured, it was time to set up our headquarters. Now, a headquarters role is 3 parts. It provides additional storage, increases influence in the province it's built, and allows for special operation buildings for covert missions, which will come in very handy later on. We picked New York for its high population, and it's home to what will be the next step in our cattle to profit production line. But then the Fire Nation attacked. And by Fire Nation, I mean America. We were the Fire Nation. We had just declared war on Cuba. It looked to be a long and drawn out war, but as the bullets were fired and the missiles flew, I was consumed by one thought: if we win this, I could build there. Now, for now, as we waited for this war's conclusion, I set up the last end of our production pharmaceutical empire. In any province that we produced crude oil or sugar, we would convert into cardiovascular medication, which had a return market value of $21,420. With the money running wild, we began to not only buy up all the empty slots, but also all the slots where inferior products were being produced. All must go to make way for our pharmaceutical production lines. And when that was done, it was time to finish up our crude oil production. You see, we left most of our crude oil producing small things. But if we increased their lines to produce silicone and advanced electronics, we could produce artificial organs and limbs with return value of $35,000. Nope. Tear this down. Get another chicken, amino acid, rubileic acid, antibacterial, crude oil, phenol, plastics, advanced electronics. Now, of course, one cannot simply manage their own house well without telling others how to manage theirs. Destiny was calling, and that destiny was politics.
We must stop the terror. Now watch this drive.
It was finally time I entered into the political sphere for the good of the business. Now, throughout the years of owning and building literally every single slot in America, the economy ran through me. And with this power, I had accumulated quite a bit of political influence. Influence that I would then use to increase my profits. First up was biometric pay. By inserting computer chips into people's bloodstreams, I could make spending easier, thus increasing the monthly GDP of the country by 0.005, which may not sound like a lot until you realize the country's GDP is almost $2 trillion. Now, it was at this time, through my teardown and rebuilding phase, I remembered a specific feature that the developer had specifically mentioned and had specifically added because of me, and I had specifically asked me to call out the personal information button. Oh my gosh, look at this button. Oh, I didn't even realize. Oh, this is so nice. This is the way. From this menu, I could auto level up every province I managed, as well as see where there was openings. Plain and simple, this was a game changer, and I would spend the vast majority of my time for the rest of the game in this menu. Thank you, developers. Oh my god, what a godsend. Next up, the impressive regulations like workplace safety standards and things like OSHA, the 8-hour work week, all stood in the way of progress and simply must be eliminated. Monthly GDP growth, +2. Not enough workers in the field? Legalize polygamy. The children, they yearn for the fields. Remove child labor laws. People retiring at 65? Not on my watch. Also, we legalized and implemented a cloning program. This was wildly unpopular.
Saying boo or boo-earns.
To soothe over the peasants who toiled for my coin, we gave them concessions like welfare and funded religious activities, which would bring order. We also allowed labor unions to negotiate their pay and alternative medicines to distract the youth. And if that wasn't enough, well, you'd never hear about it because we passed state-owned media to crush any dissent. Now, as we produced more and more pharmaceutical goods, you may have come across a fatal flaw in my dystopian empire. By mass producing a limited number of products in one subsect of the economy, you would drive down the price until it's basically worthless. This is simply the law of supply and demand, and normally I would agree with you, as we have exponentially increased the supply, so this should drive down the demand. But what if there was a way to increase demand? Now, this is where the last and most diabolical aspect of my plan comes into play. By unlocking the Special Forces tab in my headquarters, I could send out Special Forces to bring death and destruction throughout the world. Cost us a little bit of influence, but now we can start doing pandemics and stuff like that. Ooh, which will also increase the demand for medication that we just happen to be building. 15% chance you get caught. Set loose a virus strain. It will increase the demand for pharmaceuticals. Chance to spread every 45 days. Now, as the deadly viruses were unleashed upon the world, what would they need? Thoughts and prayers? Absolutely not. Nah, they would need sedatives, morphine, CNS medication, cardiovascular medication, antimicrobial medication, the works. And just who happens to be the leading producer of all these pharmaceuticals? America. From here, we release any kind of virus or disease that had a good chance of spreading in a place, not necessarily in a target country, but maybe in a bordering country that would have a less high chance of catching us. We basically became Raccoon City. Anything to turn a profit. See how that does. Spy operation caught. Oh, greatly damaging international relations. Okay, so they're going to be very mad about that. They don't know we control the weather. Tornado in United Kingdom for no reason. Launching as many bad things to other countries as we can. Heat wave in Russia happens all the time. Tornado in Beijing, routine. Floods in Egypt, customary. Anytime the cooldown came down for natural disasters or viruses, we would launch another one, because it's not really winning unless you make sure everyone else knows they lost. Soon our disaster efforts paired with our pharmaceutical industries paid dividends, as now we controlled 50% of the world and held $1 trillion in private funds. We only needed 55% to win, but would we be able to do so in record time? It would all come down to the wire. But finally, the moment of truth. There we go. We did it. We did it. Oh, we won an economy victory, finally. Oh, does that put us on the leaderboard, though? Let's go. We got 6. Okay, so room for improvement. I definitely recognize some things we could potentially do better, but that feels very good. Oh, what a fun game. If you guys would like to see me try it again and see if I can perfect my run, which I do feel confident I could, make sure to leave a comment down below. But for now, boys, thanks again to Grandpa for sponsoring this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.